Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for attending this virtual Big Ideas, Student Projects, and Current Issues with Project Agriculture session. My name is Patricia RAMSAY. I'm a former classroom teacher. I work as a consultant and I was the lead developer of the Project Agriculture program on behalf of several Alberta agricultural producer groups and working with a team of teacher reviewers and advisors from across the province. I currently manage the Project Agriculture program. The goal of my session today is to show you where you can find and how you can use the program's website and resources, give you some ideas for either project-based or lesson-focused, inquiry-centered activities that support Alberta curriculum across grades 7 to 12, and explore how and why agriculture is a topic that is relevant and important for students to learn about. Just some quick background before we get into the program and some activities. The Junior Senior High Project Agriculture program was funded by federal and provincial government through the Canadian Agricultural Partnership and supported by Alberta's Supply Managed Industries Education Group. This includes Alberta Milk, Alberta Chicken, Egg Farmers of Alberta, Alberta Hatching Egg Producers, Alberta Turkey, and more recently, with participation from 3 of Alberta crop producer groups, including Alberta Canola, Alberta Wheat and Barley, and Pulse Growers of Alberta. This collaborative effort has resulted in a truly unique program that shares a multitude of perspectives, as well as authentic, current, and accurate information related to the big idea of agriculture. All of the resources that I'm going to share with you today are free and available anytime on our website. I'm going to start with some of the background that ties into elements that you'll find in the Project Agriculture program. I've shared the Project Agriculture website URL here. Feel free to find the site and browse while you're listening to me. However, I will also be spending some time exploring and explaining where and how to find learning opportunities with you as the session progresses. Project Agriculture started in 2018 with a focus group of about 18 science and social studies teachers from across Alberta, and it's grown from there. We wanted to develop a current, accurate source of information and activities that supported project-based learning and that not only encouraged students to learn more about where their food comes from, but also provided authentic learning opportunities that connect to the agricultural community in Alberta. And we also wanted to provide that agricultural community with opportunities to see what kids are learning about agriculture and the food system and to connect with them. This is where our project-based focus is, and I'll be sharing some examples a little later in the session. We also heard from these teachers that a project-based program is great, but they wanted flexibility to be able to lift out discrete activities that could be implemented in more limited time contexts. And so we've built that flexibility into the program as well. Just a few interesting facts to start your thinking about why agriculture can be an important topic in curriculum and where and how it might connect with what you teach. The Canadian Centre for Food Integrity conducts public trust research every year into issues connected to agriculture and the food system, including issues like GMOs, sustainability, the use of hormones and antibiotics, alternative protein sources, and others. They are a great resource. You can Google them and find their website and download many of their reports. Their 2019 study found that the vast majority of Canadians feel they know little, very little, or nothing at all about modern agricultural practices and how food is produced. However, this same research also showed that a majority of Canadians are interested in knowing more about these practices. Their 2020 study found that Canadians consult and rely on website and Google searches to find information on topics connected to agriculture and the food system. And I think this raises questions about the credibility of information that students may be finding when they're just asked to search for information about agriculture. Connected to this is the fact that in 2016, only 19% of Canadians lived in rural communities, dropping from 46% over the past 100 years. This geographical disconnect from agriculture has resulted in an increasing trend for many consumers to become interested in the origins of their food. However, although credible information about agriculture and food production does exist, it can be difficult for consumers and students to access. The convenience of social media, for example, as an increasingly relied upon information source, also doesn't guarantee that that information is accurate, reliable, and credible. And a few more interesting statistics. In a research study funded through the Canada First Research Excellence Fund, which surveyed 700 Canadians on their knowledge and familiarity with topics that included crop protection products and applications, organics and organic farming, animal production, and plant breeding techniques and technologies, found an information and knowledge gap. It also revealed that consumers lack basic knowledge in most areas of agricultural production, how their food is being produced. And a 2021 Angus Reid report, commissioned by an agricultural company called Climate Corporation, found that an outdated view of agriculture also exists. Only 12% of Canadians saw agriculture as more innovative than other industries, and 37% of the Canadians surveyed didn't know how technology is being used in modern agriculture. These studies such as these, carry over to students' perceptions of farming, farmers, and the food system. How many stereotypes and misconceptions do you think students have? So we and the agricultural producer groups that I mentioned think that the big idea of agriculture and the food system is critically important for students to understand. And Project Agriculture is designed to try to close some of those gaps and provide students with access to credible, current, and Alberta-specific sources of information that can support their learning in social studies and science curriculum. Project Agriculture is centered on a desire to challenge, broaden, and expand students' conceptions and understandings about the food they eat, particularly with urban students, but also for rural students who can be given opportunities to share and make connections based on their own background, knowledge, and experiences. Before we touch on this a bit more, I thought I would test your agriculture knowledge with a quick challenge. I'm going to share 6 examples of trivia, fast fact quiz questions that you'll see a bit later in this session are integrated throughout the Project Agriculture website. When you see the question screens, you're going to notice that there is what we call a guiding question at the top of each screen. The trivia or fast fact quiz questions I'll be asking you to think about are the ones at the bottom. I'll talk about our use of guiding questions and how they and those quiz questions are connected to activities and project-based learning a bit later. So let's start with the first question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, both of these answers can be considered correct. In a scientific report published in 2010, a group of British scientists concluded that only a chicken could produce the eggshell protein used to make a chicken egg, and therefore the chicken must have come first. However, if you take the question literally and generally, the egg came first. Dinosaurs formed bird-like nests and laid bird-like eggs long before birds, including chickens, evolved from dinosaurs. Next question. What do barcodes have to do with agriculture? They identify food products. They identify agricultural pests. They identify species. Well, all three of these answers are also correct. Barcodes are, of course, scanned to identify food products and their prices. However, DNA barcoding is a Canadian innovation that is now being used in agriculture. A small sample is taken from a species, DNA is extracted and sequenced, and a barcode is created for each species. At the University of Guelph, these DNA barcodes are now being used to identify pests, check for seed lot contamination, and monitor invasive species. And this is helping both crop and livestock farmers. Next question. What percentage of Canadian farms have a renewable energy producing system on their farms? 85%, 15%, over 5%. All of these answers are also actually true in one context or another. Of the over 5% of farms in Canada that have renewable energy systems, which include solar panels, wind turbines, and other types of renewable energy, 85% of those farms use solar panels and 15% use wind turbines. Next question. When did the Canadian government implement a food policy? During World War II? In the 1970s? In the 2000s? Again, all three of these responses are true in one context or another. Government policies related to food production have actually been implemented in various forms, including during the war and into the 1970s. However, a formal and funded national food policy was not launched until 2019. Next question. Where did the inventor of the egg carton come from? Britain, Hungary, Canada. Well, you may not have known that the egg carton was actually first invented by a Canadian inventor in 1911 to settle a conflict between a farmer and a hotel owner. However, a British designer created the carton that you're probably most familiar with in the 1950s. And in 2013, a Hungarian student designed a new concept for an egg carton that is said to be the sustainable egg carton of the future. And the last question. How much daily time on average do Canadians spend eating? 91 minutes a day? 44 minutes a day? 10 minutes a day? Well, in 2015, Statistics Canada found that Canadians spent an average of 91 minutes a day eating. However, they also found that Canadians, on average, ate 2 times a day, with each meal taking an average of 44 minutes. And they also found that 10% of Canadians reported that they eat only while doing something else. So the trivia, fast fact, quiz questions such as these 6 examples can be a fun way to engage and introduce students to the wide range of topics that are connected to agriculture and the food system, but also to big ideas that can guide an inquiry, spark some of their own questions, or guide a project. I'm sure if I asked you to brainstorm what comes to mind, even after just thinking about those quiz questions we just shared, you could come up with a number of topics, concepts, and big ideas that connect to agriculture. Perhaps histories, policy, government policy and decision-making, innovation, population growth, sustainability, diversity, economies, technologies. The list can go on. These types of concepts and big ideas are what we started with and used to connect agriculture and the food system to key concepts and outcomes in Alberta's social studies and science curriculum. You'll see some of these reflected in the 6 word clouds on this slide. These word clouds reflect and represent the 6 learn about agriculture topics that are provided in the Project Agriculture program and on the website. Food democracy, smart agriculture, and sustainability matters are the 3 topics that are currently available. And we're working on and will be launching 3 new topics: agriculture histories, sustainable practices, and food diversity in the next month or 2. All 6 of these topics support specific curriculum outcomes across grades 7 to 12, social studies and science, and those outcomes are identified. The connection between the big ideas that guide the content of each of these 6 topics, as well as the quiz questions, represent a strong focus on questioning that we've built and integrated throughout the program and all of its resources. Those quiz questions are meant to open discussion and generate interest. They can be used to set the context for more in-depth activities and exploration. As a start, for example, to general brainstorming about what agriculture involves and what agriculture looks like. For example, through some of students' own word cloud creation. For generating more questions or areas for further research. As a starting point for the creation of something like a Kahoot game or a quiz, or to identify and discuss perspectives and issues that may be connected, like what does food policy mean when it comes to government involvement or consumer decision making? Or how does one innovation spark another and lead to advances in science? As I mentioned earlier, the Project Agriculture website is designed to provide learning opportunities both for students and for you that can support project-based learning, as well as provide an option for shorter, lesson-focused activities that could be implemented in a few class periods and integrated into your existing units. So let's go there. I'm going to click Junior, Senior, High. And one of the first things you'll see is an overarching question that asks students to think about why they should learn about agriculture and why agriculture matters. 3 responses: because it's about feeding the world's population, because it's about the jobs and food of the future, or because it's about sustainability. The big ideas that you could pull out of these responses and the pop-down explanations are connected to all of our 6 topics and can set a context for the identification and exploration of current issues related to agriculture and food production. For example, how can and should we feed a growing population? To what extent should consumers take responsibility for a sustainable food system? Or does globalization provide opportunities or challenges? What does the food of the future look like? How should it be produced? Does high tech, for example, in agriculture, equate with low impact on the environment? What about agricultural biodiversity? Should it be protected? To what extent should natural ecosystems affected by agriculture be preserved? What priorities should we establish for sustainable food production? This overarching questions and responses can be used to have students pull out and identify issues such as these that connect specifically to the subject and grade level that you're teaching. The overarching question is also designed to introduce students to the learning context of this web page. You'll notice that there are 4 main pages in the top menu. This Learn web page is designed primarily to be used by students. So we're just going to scroll down. And there's a set of tiles at the top of the page that provide an introduction and an overview of some of the learning supports that are available and that can support, again, all or any of our 6 topics. We're going to take a quick look at these and then come back to explore the topics in a bit more depth. Find out what's new, just quick updates that are available on the program, as well as any information that we have provided through some of our mailouts. Right now, we have some quick suggestions for remote and in-class learning tips that are organized around the competencies. We also have a subscribe link where you can subscribe to our mailing list. Launch your learning. This tile links to a web page that again can be used to spark thinking about agriculture and the food system, and can be used to introduce any of those 6 topics. It includes a video, a discussion guide, and an interest questionnaire. The video comes from Alberta Treasury branches, but it provides a bit of an overview of agriculture in Alberta and can be used to get students thinking about what agriculture looks like. I'm just going to play a minute of this video for you. All of the videos that are embedded in the Project Agriculture website open up in their own window, so students never leave the web page that they're on.
Through this open sky, it sends down rain between sunshine. It warms the earth on which we stand. Long love this land. These golden fields that wave in the breeze produce their yield for a hungry world to feed. It rise to feel it's hard to man. Long love this land. Long love this land. Long love this land. If you've been here, then you understand. Long love this land.
I think that there's some really compelling images and statistics about agriculture in Alberta that students can be asked to think about and discuss. So a discussion guide can be accessed in 2 ways, either in a PDF format or by just pushing down and finding some discussion questions on the web page itself. Anytime you see the green question icon, the questions can be clicked on and they can be enlarged for class, online, whiteboard, or group sharing. The interest questionnaire just provides some questions that ask students to think about what they already know about agriculture, food, and farming in Alberta, Canada, and globally, as well as what they would like to know more about. So we'll go back to the tiles. Meet a farmer. This tile links to another web page on the site that shares videos that are specific to the Project Agriculture program. There are also links to features on Egg Farmers of Alberta, Alberta Chicken, Alberta Milk, and Alberta Wheat and Barley that give students the opportunity to submit their own questions. There are, as I said, videos also on this webpage that have been developed specifically for the Project Agriculture program. We continue to add to this page, and we'll actually be adding quite a number of new videos when we launch the 3 new topics in the next month or 2. These videos are also embedded within the topics, and I'll give you a few examples as we go along. Plan a project is another tile, and this is where we really focus on project-based learning. Each of the topics has a project challenge, and there are PDF supports for those project challenges, as well as a number of other resources that students can use to develop their projects. And I will come back to this and touch on it in a bit more detail shortly. So let's just take a quick look at the topic viewer. I mentioned earlier in the session that Project Agriculture includes 6 topics, each focused on a different curriculum area. Food democracy. How can you be an informed food consumer? Supports grade 9 and 10 social studies. Smart agriculture. How can you use evidence-based information to promote smart food systems? Targets grade 9 science, as well as science 10 and 14. Sustainability matters. How can you support sustainable agriculture and food systems? Targets grade 9 science and biology 20. Agriculture histories, one of our new topics. In what ways have changes in agriculture over time affected your food choices? Targets grade 7 social studies. Sustainable practices, what agricultural practices should be part of a farm of the future? Supports grade 7 and 8 science. And food diversity, how can crop diversity feed the world? Again, also supports grade 7 and 8 science. So I mentioned earlier that we've designed Project Agriculture with a focus on questioning and inquiry. If we were doing a live session, I'd ask you to dig into the 3 existing topics to find each of the 6 specific sources listed on this slide. Each of these sources can be found in a carousel slide in one of the topics that's focused on each of the guiding questions that are also listed on this slide. Hopefully you can already start to see some of the connections we're making to your grade level and curricular area. These guiding questions come from each of our 3 existing topics, and each topic can be accessed in our topic viewer. Let's start with a quick look at the food democracy topic. So when you first come onto the topic, you'll see a video, and this video introduces the topic, identifies current issues and questions associated with it, as well as providing a suggested project focus.
The idea of food democracy may seem complicated. However, simply put, food democracy refers to the control that people, including farmers and consumers, have over their food choices. Food democracy encourages everyone to actively participate in the food system, which involves how and where food is raised and grown, its processing, distribution, and consumption, as well as the waste that results. It recognizes that people can make the current food system healthier and more sustainable. Food and democracy are both important. We all need food. We all have rights and freedoms that are made possible by democracy. However, some believe that we are not as connected to our food system and our democracy as we should be. Do we really have the power to choose the foods we need and want? Do we have the ability to influence change in the food system? How does the global food system influence our choices? What are the economics of the food we eat?
Spark icons are also found on each topic banner. There's 3 or 4 spark icons in each topic, and they open to provide a downloadable student resource that provides suggested potential project or additional guiding questions or inquiry questions that are focused on the big ideas across the topics. For example, rights, globalization, climate, biotechnologies and biodiversity, food challenges, sustainable ecosystems, both agricultural and natural. Each of the Spark handouts gives a little self-assessment check-in for students as they start their inquiry or research. And the Sparks are meant to set a context for that further research and exploration. They can provide a starting point for project-based learning or simply a jumping off point into a more in-depth and research-focused lesson or activity. Self-contained lessons or activities can be found in the carousel slides. Each topic has 6 to 7 different carousel slides. Each carousel slide with a focus and correlated to a specific grade level. Each carousel slide is essentially self-contained. It's focused on a guiding question and a generalization. And it opens with one of those trivia fast fact quiz questions like the examples I shared earlier. You might recognize this one. And it includes downloadable PDF learning sources and build competencies activity worksheets. The learning sources provide fillable fields anytime there is a question for student reflection or discussion. And the build competencies do the same. Build competencies worksheets also provide additional links for further research, suggested activities, and many of them include embedded graphic organizers and thinking maps. Competencies are reinforced at the top of each slide. And these are the competencies that are developed or supported in those build competency worksheets. Each slide also provides several different types of sources: infographics, additional information. In some of the information, vocabulary supports are embedded, and enlargeable discussion questions. All of the 6 topics are also accessible at the top of the topic viewer, so you can move between each of the topics easily. And they all have the same elements: the introductory video, the Sparks, and the carousel slides. The 3 new topics, agriculture histories, has the same elements: the Sparks and 6 carousel slides. So I'd really encourage you to go to a topic and explore all of the carousel slides. Although they are developed to support specific grade levels in social studies or science, I think there's also opportunities to select and combine slides across topics to best meet the learning needs of your students and your own teaching contexts. I mentioned earlier that one of our goals is to address gaps in understanding about modern agriculture and our food system. Another of our goals is to provide opportunities for students and school communities to connect with the agricultural community in Alberta. We do this through our Share webpage, and the supports for project-based learning that we provide. So the Share web page showcases student projects that have been submitted to Project Agriculture. We currently have about 10 student projects as well as 3 exemplars on this page. And again, I'm not going to show you all of them, but I'd encourage you to explore some of the projects that have been submitted by students. We provide incentives for students and for you to submit a student project. And I think that this part of our program really does allow students to share their learning in an authentic context. We provide project development supports. I showed you this web page a little bit earlier and mentioned that each of the topics includes a project challenge. So this is provided as a PDF handout that can be given to students and does include some project planning templates and supports for students to use, again with those fillable fields. The project supports also include suggestions for designing their project, whether it's a video, a profile poster, a lab demonstration, a blog post, or an op-ed. Again, we provide different design suggestions with a handout for each one that has some tips as well as some additional links that students can use as they're designing and creating their projects. And we also provide a number of graphic organizers and thinking maps. These are often referenced in the Build Competencies handouts, and they can be downloaded here. Again, many of them also do include those fillable fields. And we provide supports for you. So we have an online project submission form with some instructions for what is accepted and the format that can be used. We also include a permission and release form that you can use as an example to obtain that permission that's needed to share a student project. Our project-based learning process is organized around 4 stages: Spark and Engage, Search and Investigate, Design and Create, and Publish and Share. The Project Agriculture website is really organized to provide learning supports for each of these 4 stages. Spark and Engage by brainstorming, exploring trivia, fast fact quiz questions, investigating and initiating with the Spark icons and handouts. Search and Investigate by using the carousel slides to dig deeper, identify sources, research, apply understandings, organize and assess information. Design and Create with the project challenges and design pages. And Publish and Share by submitting a project to be showcased on our Share webpage. So this chart, along with many other supports, can be found on the Teach webpage. I'm just going to go over the Teach webpage relatively quickly. This is where you will find all of the PDF resources found on the Learn webpage, as well as some additional supports. The Teach webpage provides you with links to download those PDF resources for each topic, includes an additional link to those project-based challenges, design ideas, and graphic organizers and templates that we looked at a few minutes ago, gives you a link as well to a short survey, and provides you another link to a web page with detailed curriculum correlations. The word clouds that you might remember seeing on an earlier slide are featured on top of each of the topic teaching resource links or tiles. And if you click on one, you'll see an at-a-glance overview of the topic, including the project challenge, the targeted subject area and grade levels, a reminder about competency development and support in this topic, as well as tiles that provide you with access to download the PDF components of the topic. These include a project and activity guide with learning experiences, suggested strategies and activities, project-based learning support, activity support, correlated to the Sparks as well as the Carousel slides. All of the Spark question PDF handouts are also provided as a combined downloadable PDF document. So in each topic, the Sparks that you find are available all in one place. This is also true for the Learn and Build Competencies handouts. These have all been combined from the Carousel slides and are provided in one place for you or your students to use. There are some additional supports provided on the Teach web page as well. The project tools include graphic organizers and templates that are referenced in the Build Competency handouts, as well as some additional ones referenced in the teaching guide activity suggestions. Many of them, again, have those fillable fields. Assessment tools include assessment suggestions and templates, including a learning checklist, project check-in grids that are designed for students to use, and rubrics. And the vocabulary support document gathers all of those vocabulary terms that are highlighted in the PDF resources, as well as those that are embedded in the Carousel slides in one place, so that you have a complete vocabulary list for the topic. So if you click on this tile, it'll take you to a separate web page, and here's where you'll find the detailed curriculum correlations for each of the topics. Right now we have the 3 existing topics. We'll be adding the same type of chart or grid for the 3 new topics. And this gives you an idea of the subject area and grade level that a topic is either targeted for, along with a listing that you can print of all of the outcomes categorized around conceptual and procedural knowledge. And it also gives you some additional curriculum links that you can make. So for example, Smart Agriculture, one of the Carousel tiles can be used to support learning outcomes in grade 8 science, and it'll give you a specific link to that Carousel tile. I will just note that the first time you go to download any of those PDF resources on the Teach web page, you will be asked to fill in a subscribe form for our mailing list. You can unsubscribe at any time. We send out about 3 or 4 emails in a school year just with updates or latest news on the Project Agriculture program. And finally, please consider adding your voice to our community before and after you work with students on projects, or even after you've implemented any of the activities from the Project Agriculture program. We're really interested in hearing from teachers as well as from students. We rely on this teacher survey to continue to improve and strengthen the Project Agriculture program. A last note, we will mail you on request print copies of all of those PDF components for each or any of the topics if you are interested in having those in hard copy. I'll be sharing our program contact email on the next slide. Thank you again so much for choosing to attend this session. I want to end by encouraging you to consider having your students work on and submitting a project to the Project Agriculture program. I also want to remind you that you can get in touch with me or my team at any time through our email, contact@projectagriculture.ca. We welcome suggestions, feedback, questions, or even just general requests for help and support. Enjoy the rest of your convention. Thanks again.